Hey, everybody, just give me 1 second. We're just gonna do a couple things here and then we're gonna get started. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Hi, I hope you're doing okay. It's a little hot out there and we're getting cooked here with the temperature. It's probably almost 100 degrees here today, but I'm sure that a lot of you guys all over here are doing the same thing. That's right. My buddy McGee. That's true. Actually, it's so hot out there today. My walk tonight was actually very short. My dogs didn't want to go any place tonight. It was just too hot out there for them. All right, give me 1 second. We seem to have a little lag time. We have a couple more people picking up. I'm surprised. I didn't think it was going to be a good turnout tonight because, being summer, I kind of figured everybody would be down the shore or up the mountains or doing something other than watching me. But then again, you're sitting in the air conditioning, cooling off a little bit. You really can't complain. All right. Like I said, my dogs tonight didn't want to really walk very far. Normally, I'll take them for a walk, and we'll walk for probably about an hour. Tonight, we walked probably all of about maybe a block or two down the street and turned around and came right back, and then that was enough for them. It was just way too hot. So, all right. A couple of things we're going to talk about this week. I know we have a couple more people gonna be here shortly. I think, hopefully, anyway. We'll see how it goes. How do you like my new Hawaiian shirt here? I ran out of my other ones, and this comes from my son and his wife. Because as you know, Father's Day was not long ago, and this is one of my many gifts. So thank you very much. And let me just click over, and we're going to see what anybody has to say here. All right. I guess that's probably okay right there where it is. We look good? Okay. Hey, you like that shirt, huh? Yeah. I should try to sell these online is what I should do, huh? What do you think? Not this one, because this was a gift. This will never go anywhere, but I should sell Hawaiian shirts, drum up some business for Hawaii, right? Okay, a couple of things we're going to talk about this week. I know last week we said we were going to talk about dealerships and the games that dealerships play. When you bring your car in to get it worked on, they always, of course, this happens all the time. We will get into this in a minute, but I'm just going to give you a quick thought here. When you bring it into a dealership and you get those free oil changes, you never get out the door, or very rarely will you get out the door free. So, but we'll come back to that in a minute. I have a couple of things we're going to talk about here that I had some questions from some of my subscribers. One of my subscribers, which I actually failed to write down their name here, they said to me exactly, and I do quote, "How do you deal with the heat at work?" Well, anybody who works outside knows. Well, first off, let me just say, a lot of people are probably saying, well, you don't work outside. You work inside, indoors, in the shop or whatever. But it's true. I do work inside a shop. But the problem is when you have a car, and this time of the year, most cars are coming into you with some kind of a heating type problem, whether it's overheating or the air conditioner is not functioning properly, or the car is giving you some kind of an issue. You have to have the car running. And you have the car running, the average car today, it doesn't run at 160 degrees. An average car today is running at 220, 230, so it's pretty hot. So even though we're inside in the not in the sun, and it's not air conditioned in the shop, but you're indoors, you're not directly in the sun beating down on you, you're still getting cooked in there because you bring a car into the shop and it's 230 degrees, the car, and before long, that shop, the temperature just starts going up. I remember one year we were working there and it was probably in the upper 90s to 100 degrees. And I remember working, and my guy was working with me. Actually, it was two other guys working with me. And the one guy comes to me and he said, that Cadillac over there, when I pulled it inside the shop here and I started working on it, he said it showed that the shop was 105 degrees. And I said, nah, that's impossible. It can't be 105. Well, he was wrong. It wasn't 105. It was actually about 106. Because when I went to the thermometer on the wall, sure enough, it really was that hot. But when you're in the shop and you're working all day long, it may start out in the shop at 75 or 80 degrees. And then as the day goes on, the temperature goes up 1 to 2 degrees at a time, and you really don't notice that temperature increase until you get into a car that you've done air conditioning on. And if you've done the air conditioning and you take the car for a test drive, you have to see if the AC works. And as you're driving it, sure enough, you're in the car, you feel the AC, you're checking your temperatures and everything. And now while you're driving the car, your body temperature is coming down just that little bit. So you get a chill from the air conditioning. And then when you get out of the car back in the shop, that's when you realize how hot it actually is. Because now you're in the shop that has no air conditioning and you're getting cooked in there. So the way we deal with it at the shop with the heat is you have fans inside there moving the air around. Even though it's hot air, it's still going to be circulating through the shop, and it feels a little bit better than just having that hot, stagnant air with very high humidity. So just keep the air moving, and of course drink lots of liquids, and that's it. I've been doing it for 42 years, so you just adapt to it. Now, I know we have a bunch of stuff going on here on the chat, which I will get to. I promise I'm going to go back and look at it. I just want to see who's in here. I see my buddy McGee63 is in here. Corrine is in here. Stanley, I see you're there. Wyatt's here. Hello, Wyatt. How you doing? A little bit cooler in Tennessee, I think, right? Oh, yeah, definitely. As soon as I hear anything about it, Wyatt, I'm definitely up for it for sure. But it's probably just going to be me, just so you know, Wyatt. Mrs. Jimthecarguy will not be coming because I got 2 dogs and I can't leave them here by themselves. So it'll probably just be me you guys are already stuck with up there. Oh, we got somebody from the Bronx. Let's see, we got Lon. Lon, I do apologize. Lon, I had my phone right here. I was going to call you. I even said to my wife, Lon, I said, I promised Lon I was going to give him a call during the weekend. I didn't do it. I just got sidetracked. There's always a million things going on. I came in here to my desk to get ready for the live stream tonight. I turned on my other computer and I said, I'm going to call Lon now before I get started. And then I realized I didn't print off any of my material that I needed tonight. So Lon, I do apologize. I will give you a call and we'll catch up a little bit. Stanley, Gerald, 102 in Texas. Oh my gosh. I can do without that, Gerald, for sure. And Gerald, I didn't forget about you. I just haven't had a chance to get down and send that thing to you that I said that I was going to, but I promise you I have that here for you. Lon, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope everything is well with you. Okay. John is in here. All right. Okay, we're going to come back to this in just a minute. So now we're going to just talk about a couple of things which I promised my subscribers I would talk to them about today, and this is one of them. This comes from one of my. This is actually Nat. It's called Nat, which is Nat. He's one of my subscribers. I know him for quite some time. I don't know if he's in here tonight, but I haven't seen him yet. If you're in here, let me know. I hope you're here. I'm just scrolling down right now. I don't see it, but we're going to talk about this anyway because you can always go back and look through this. And he writes, I pray you have a good weekend and we'll be watching the live stream for sure. So I guarantee Nat's in here. He's watching. He's probably just back for some place, but I'm sure he's coming. Nah, it's just me. Okay. All right. That sounds good, Wyatt. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. Joseph, good to see you as well. Hope everything is good. I'm going to give you a call during the week too. We have some catching up to do, and I want to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods down there. Okay, but let me finish this one here, and then we're going to come back to some of this stuff over here. Let's see. I found your channel a couple of years ago from your live stream. I found Joe's Auto, Mike the Disgruntled Mechanic, Eric, South Main Auto. Okay, enough of that. And why I emailed you. And now he writes, I have a 2010 Honda Accord EX 2.4. I can unlock the door with the keyless entry, and I open it from the inside, but not from the outside. Is it a simple fix? I will not be trying to fix it. Just want your professional opinion. Okay, well, I've seen this a lot. It's not always as bad as you think. It's a good possibility that with something like this, the locks had different mechanisms. When you go inside and you pull the door handle, when you pull that door handle, inside that door handle is actually a little wire inside there that slides a lever inside the door lock itself to unlock the lever. But on the other hand, when you go to the outside and you actually grab the outside door handle and you pull the outside door handle up, what happens is, I'm Italian, so I got to talk with my hands, just so you know. What happens is you have a rod that comes up like this, and the door handle is on the outside. This connects into a lever that's right up on here. So when you open up the door on the outside and you pull the handle up, this lever pushes down on that pin or the rod to actually open up the lock itself. But where this piece here connects up into the door handle itself, there's a little plastic clip on there. Those plastic clips on there, sometimes they break off on there. And if they break off, that's going to cause the handle to lift up and down, but the rod itself is not going to push down because the rod will be hanging off sideways. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that the rod could still be connected up into the handle, and when you lift it up, it's pushing this piece down, but it's not engaging in the lock on the bottom. Again, there's another clip down on the bottom right there, a little plastic clip on the bottom that also fails. And if both of those are okay, then obviously something is going to be broken inside the lock itself. But I would check the clips on there first, because with the clips being broken, that will absolutely cause that door not to open. So I hope that helps you out. And okay, it says, see you on Shop Talk. So Nat should be in here. He said he's going to be, so I'm just going to go back and look a little bit. Oh, Big Dog 50001. Hi, how you doing tonight? Glad to see you here. Hope everything is well in your neck of the woods. Okay, this is the next thing. This, and this is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I think I'm going to kill it. Simis. I apologize. I can't. Simis 2 or something like that. Okay. Can you take off a broken stud and put on a new one, please? Now this was for a video that I was actually doing where I was changing the rear parking brakes on a Ford. I think it was an Explorer, if I'm not mistaken. And what happens once you take everything off of there, and all you have showing is just the hub itself, and you have the stud sticking through the back of it, basically what you're going to do is you're going to take a center punch, and that stud that's broken, you just hit that stud that's broken and push it through into an empty space in the back, and then you pull out that broken piece. You take the new piece, the new stud, and you put that new stud in through the back of the rotor with a little bit of grease on it, and you put a washer around the axle where the stud is coming through the axle. You put a very large washer on there. You screw a nut on backwards so that the flat part of the nut is touching up against the washer. You put a little bit of grease on there again, and then you turn that nut in as far as you can by hand, and then you would hit it with an air gun, and you would tighten that nut on. And when you tighten the nut up against the axle, it's actually pulling the stud back through into the back of the bearing itself, or the hub. It's pulling it through, and then you would just pull it with the air gun. You would keep on hitting it until that bolt comes all the way through, and it actually pulls the flat part of the stud even with the flat part on the back of the hub. It sounds like it's hard, but it's actually fairly simple once you have everything apart. So it's really not that bad. Okay, we got one more here we're going to do, and then we're going to talk about something else, the dealership stuff. Excellent video. Do you think I can do this? But it's way too complicated for a do-it-yourselfer. I guess I have to call up $208 to the STS to fix the headlight. This one here was a Cadillac. I know it was a Cadillac, and to replace the headlight or the bulb on a Cadillac, it's a little bit of a pain in the rear end, not just the Cadillac, but a lot of the vehicles out there today. In order to put the headlight in, you have to remove the headlight assembly. The problem is to remove the headlight assembly, you need to, sorry, the problem is to remove the headlight assembly, you have to take the bumper cover off of the car. It sounds like it's a real tough job, but if you saw the video, you really see it. It's not that bad. Basically, all you're doing is you're removing a bunch of little plastic push pins that are in there and a couple of little small screws that hold it in place. And then you take the whole bumper assembly, preferably with an assistant, and you pull that bumper assembly forward and put it down on the ground. Make sure you put something down so you don't scratch the bumper cover. And then you pull the light assembly apart. As long as you're following what you're doing and taking your time by taking those clips out and you're not breaking and pulling something out of the way, it looks like it's hard, but it's really not as hard as you would think it is. It's fairly simple. So in my opinion, if you're a handy guy, you could or girl, you could probably get it done yourself. It's really not that bad. Okay. Oh, I see Mike is in here. Mike, good to see you there. Hope everything is well up by you. I'm going to go back and I'm going to just see what I missed back here. I see there's a bunch of stuff going on without me here. We're just going to go back a little bit. Okay. Let me just go back over here, Gerald. Okay, looks like a lot of stuff. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just reading these. Looks like everybody's talking. Okay. All right. I got one more that we're going to take care of here, and then we're going to talk about the problem with the dealerships and when you bring a car into a dealership and they try to run you over the coals. Okay, I'm not even gonna say anything about that because I know somebody's gonna bring up something that I probably shouldn't talk about. Okay, here we have this is a 2008 and it's a Toyota and it's a no start. And Vanessa says or writes, she says, good video. Why is it sometimes my boyfriend BF car won't start? Soon as he pulls his key in, nothing. It just stays off. I'm not sure if it's an alternator because we just got a new one not long ago. They told me his battery is still good. Can you help us out in what's happening with the car? Okay, this one in particular, I remember this, Vanessa. I think the one that you actually sent me the email on, it was a Toyota. It was a 2008, but that Toyota was a push button to start. It's a little bit different. If you have a key and you put the key in and you turn the key and nothing happens, then you need to first go outside. And now, if there is a key, I believe you said there was a key. Put his key in, yeah, okay. Well, the video I did was on one that was a push button, but it's pretty much the same procedure. If you put the key in the ignition and you turn the key and the car doesn't do nothing, doesn't start at all, no clicking, no cranking, no nothing. First thing you want to do is you want to go out and look at your headlights on the car to see if your headlights are bright. If your headlights are bright, then you can have your assistant get in the vehicle and turn the key to try to start it, and you watch your headlights. If the headlights go dim or go almost totally out, then you need to check the battery to make sure that your battery is charged up and that is not a problem. If you turn the key and the lights are bright, you turn the key and all of a sudden the lights go out, you have your assistant keep the key in the crank position and grab the terminal ends itself and just rotate the terminal ends to see if you can get it to start, because there's a possibility that you may have just a bad connection on the terminal ends where it's connecting onto the battery itself. So you want to make sure that your terminal connections are all tight. If your headlights go out or go very dim, then you want to check your battery to make sure your battery's okay. If your headlight stays bright and it does not go dim when you turn the key, and you hear a clicking noise or you don't hear a clicking noise, then you're going to need to go down by the starter with a test light and check by the starter to make sure that the starter is okay and there's not a problem with the starter. So, there is a lot of different things that could be going on with that. But, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure your battery is in good condition and make sure you have good connections on the battery. If you're in here tonight, and this was Vanessa. If you're in here tonight and you can elaborate on anything, let me know. And hopefully I'll see your name come up on here and we can address the issue so we can actually get you started or get your boyfriend's car started and get him back on the road. All right. So Vanessa, if you're here, let me know. It doesn't crank if you hear a clicking noise or anything like that. Okay, David says to me, he says, Jim, what's the typical lifespan for a Honda or Toyota starter? Do you figure years or mileage? David, to be truthful with you, it all depends. There's lots of different variables there. I mean, I have cars with 250,000 miles on them, but the starters are all still original. You don't have a problem with them. And I have other people that come in with 50,000 miles on it, and the starter is no good. So if you start and stop the car frequently, it's going to prematurely cause the starter to wear out. But the starters today are not like they were years ago. Years ago, starters used to burn out. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here. I do need to respond to this, so give me 1 second. Thank you. So starters have lots of different things that can actually that can cause them to prematurely burn out. Believe it or not, if you have a battery that's a weak battery and the starter doesn't get the correct voltage to crank it over, you can prematurely wear out your battery because of a rundown. Wear out your starter because of a rundown battery. So there's lots of different variables. But I've had. I think on my own cars, I don't even recall ever changing a starter on my own cars. And I've had a lot of cars over the years, and I don't recall ever changing a starter, except way back in the olden days on an F85. I used to have a F85 Oldsmobile. It was a 66. I remember changing a starter on that one. But everything ever since then, I really haven't had too much of a problem. They're usually pretty dependable. So to answer your question, years and mileage really doesn't matter. It's just, I will say this too. I do see frequently. I'll have customers come in, and I'm sure anybody who's on who has this, who is a mechanic, will tell you. You get a car to come in and is leaking motor oil, and you'll tell the customer that you're leaking oil. You really need to correct that. And their thing is, well, it's really not leaking that bad. I only add a quart once in a while to it, so it's really not bad. But what happens frequently when a starter goes bad, when the oil starts leaking, where does it leak? It runs down the back of the valve cover and it drips off most of the time right in the starter. I can't tell you how many starters I've pulled out and they're covered in motor oil. Oil gets into a starter and it's going to destroy that starter for sure. So a lot of times starters go bad because of that lack of maintenance by a customer. Oil is a real killer. I've had customers already where I've told them the starter was bad, and then I write it right on their bill that the starter has got to be replaced. Either the motor oil leak has got to be corrected, or the antifreeze leak has got to be corrected. Because if they're not corrected, it's going to wind up burning it out. And I've already done a call one time, twice. I did a starter on it because it was dripping antifreeze directly on top of the starter, and it wound up destroying the starter. Was it under warranty? No, it wasn't, because it was nothing wrong with the starter. It was actually it was because the customer chose not to fix it. Let me just see. It's hard for me to keep up with what's going on here. David, I hope that helps you out. Wyatt says there is another YouTuber out there that says Lexus is about the most reliable car out there. Well, I think I know who Wyatt's talking about, and I kind of don't agree with him on a Lexus in particular, but the Toyotas are actually one of the most dependable cars out there. My opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to hear a little bit of discussion about this too. My opinion, Hondas, Toyotas, Nissans, Hyundais, they're all extremely reliable cars. American cars, not so much as the foreign cars, and I know I'm going to hear somebody say something about that, but it's true. The foreign cars are the most dependable out there right now. And the Lexus and the Infinities and everything, they're really good too, because as you know, they are Toyotas and Nissans as well. Just glorified. They have more bells and whistles. Okay, and McGee says, even Scotty Kilmer says Toyota is the best, and if Scotty says it, it's gospel. That's the truth. Scotty's been around the block a few times. But yeah, that's probably one of the most dependable ones out there is the Hondas and Toyotas. I can't really say much bad about them. Volkswagens years ago used to be really good, but Volkswagen, the quality of Volkswagen has gone right down the tubes. And I know Joe from Joe's Auto Electric will definitely agree on that, because I know he had a Volkswagen that he had nothing but trouble with, and it was all in the warranty, but it's the inconvenience of having to constantly bring it back to the dealer and know that they're going to try to hose you some way or another to try to put the cost on you. Right, Joe? Okay. John 1240 Abel. Nissans have a lot of CVT problems. Well, Nissan did have a lot. John, you're right. Nissan did have a lot of problems with the CVT. But what happened is the Nissan people came out and they actually extended the warranty on that CVT, because one of the guys who worked for me, a mechanic, actually wound up buying a new car. It was a Nissan. I think it was the Maxima, if I'm not mistaken. Was it? Whatever. I think it was the Nissan Maxima or Altima. I don't recall which one it was. And he left the dealership driving back to his house with his brand new car, and the transmission was a problem, brand new, right out of the factory. Never even got home with it. Wound up having to turn around and go back and bring it back up to the dealership to have them correct it. Oh, my buddy's Nats and Nats in here. I just saw him pop up on here. My employer RAV4 has 300,000 and counting. My Honda has 125. Yeah, I believe it. I've had lots of customers, 250, 300,000, and then most of the time the motors are all very sound. The problem is everything else starts to wear out around it too. So they are extremely, extremely reliable. Lon says, I had a 75 Olds Cutlass Salon with a turbo 350 with a 380,000. Wow. Didn't I use any of that's a lot of miles, Lon. That's a lot of miles for that car. That Cutlass was a beautiful car. 380,000, that's a lot of miles. The older cars back in those days, they didn't really get that kind of mileage on them. Back in the day when, like Lon was talking about these 1975, back in the day in the 60s and 70s, you were lucky if a car got 100,000 miles on it. And once you got to 100,000 miles, you had all major failures taking place. So whoever had that, and Lon, I'm sure you took good care of it. If you change your oil frequently, you're not going to have a problem. But that was the problem, is that people didn't change their oil frequently enough, and you wound up destroying the engines. But if you got 380 on it, Lon, you did pretty good. My Torino, actually, that I had back in, it was a 73. I think I had it for a little over 100,000 miles on it or something like that. That car used to burn valves like crazy. I did 2 valve jobs on that car before I finally got rid of it. And that was because it was back in the 70s, and those cars were designed to run with the leaded gasoline, and everything started going unleaded. So you wound up with a lot of valve issues with that. All right, what else we got going here? Wyatt says, yeah, Volkswagens have gone downhill. That's true. Let's see what we got going. The only issue I have on my Hondas are the AC systems. Replaced the compressor on the 2007 Odyssey with 90,000. David, you're right. Actually, on my Honda, I did a video on one of my Hondas, actually, where I think it was it this year? I think it was at the end of the year, at the end of the summer last year, I wound up having to change a compressor on my, I had a 2008 a Honda CRV, and I wound up changing a compressor It ran perfect, and out of the blue, bam, it just failed just like that. And there was an internal failure in the compressor because when I got the car down to the shop and they let it sit, I started up. I had the car running for maybe 30 seconds. The compressor was so hot you couldn't even touch it. So yeah, the compressors are an issue with those for sure. I've been busy, but I'm always busy. Wyatt says, I've always been a GM guy, but since watching auto repair videos, I am convinced that Hondas and Toyotas, etc., are super good cars. It's true, Wyatt. I mean, uh, there's this. Me personally, I don't like. Honestly, I hate working on my own car. Even when I have my car down at the shop and I have my guys down there with me, I would have my guy do my car because I didn't even want to work on my own car. I hate working on my own cars. So that's why I like the Hondas, the Toyotas, the Nissans, the Hyundais. They're all very dependable and then very little work on it. Volkswagens are going downhill. The engine and trans last. It's the bodies that rust away. That's true. That's what happens when you live in the Rust Belt. Let's see what we got going on. I'm going to go back a little bit because I touched it and all of a sudden we skip way. Lon says Valvoline decals held the thing together. That's true. Wow, 250 on the Mercedes diesel. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm just going to look through some of this stuff here, and then we're going to get over to talk about the dealership stuff. This is Chris writes. He says my Ford F-150 has 240,000 on the original motor and trans. That's pretty good. I wonder what year that truck is, Chris, because that's probably the one that had the problem with those plugs breaking off on them. Hopefully not, but I know they had a lot of trouble with them. And that says my Diamante trans went 80,000. Got a used trans with 47. Put it in and sold that. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Diamante was a good-looking car, but it wasn't very, very dependable. Okay. Can't beat Hyundai's warranty. That's true, 100,000 miles. But there is kind of a loophole with that. I thought there was too. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not positive, but I remember somebody telling me one time, and this was a guy who actually is a rental car company. Even though it has a 100,000 mile warranty on it, if it's in commercial use, it doesn't carry that 100,000 mile warranty. I think the warranty was half of the 100, which was a rental car company. Those cars really take a beating. David said new Honda Accords and Civics look really cool. They do. They have nice body style to them now. Let's see what we got going on here. My Chevy truck burned me too many times. 5.3 Chevy. Yeah, we're not even going to talk about the 5.3, Joe. You know and I know what's going on with those. All right. Move to Rusty, Texas. Kia and Honda are the same, but the Kias are evil cars. Do not buy them. Well, it's true. Even though the Kia and the Hyundais, you think they're the same, they're not, because I find that the Kia, actually, the material that they make the Kia out of, I don't know what it is, but it seems like they rust like crazy. Obviously I'm in the Rust Belt, but the Kias just seem like they rust a heck of a lot worse than most of the Hyundais out there. Okay, let's see. Mike's Wolf was never let me down. Lon says dealerships. Yep, you're right, Lon. I've heard that too many times. That's why we're going to talk about that. All right, I think we're going to let some of this stuff go right here now. And then we're going to talk about the dealerships. But I got one thing we're going to talk about first. This we did already. One of my subscribers sent me they wanted to get into the buying of cars, fixing them, and selling them for a profit. And they asked me, "Is it possible?" And we talked about this last week in a little bit more detail. Is it possible to buy a car, fix a car, and sell it and make money on it? The thing you always have to remember, whenever you're going to buy, whether it's a car or a house or whatever you're going to buy, if you have to buy it at the right price. You have to buy it at the right price so you can sell it at the right price. And what that means is that if you're going to go out and you're going to pay fairly close to wholesale price for a car, it's going to be very difficult to sell that car and make a profit. You have to remember, if you're buying the car and you're going to buy it, fix it, and sell it, you're going to buy the car, you're going to pay for the car, you're going to register the car, you're going to have to insure the car, you're going to have to repair the car, and then you're going to have to wind up paying, whatever it is to advertise it and sell the car. So you always want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you want to factor in that whatever repairs you're going to do on the car, what it's going to cost you to register and pay the sales tax that you need to pay, because you can't just take the title and like if you bought the vehicle from Joe Schmo down the street, you can't keep that title in that person's name. You have to turn that title over in your name. Otherwise, that's called title flipping, and that's against the law. You can't do that. So you will need to pay the taxes on the car when you buy the car from whoever you purchase it from. So you'll need to buy the car, transport the car, fix the car, pay the tax on the car, and sell the car. And all of those things you have to take into consideration. So when you go to look at the car, the first thing you're going to do is if it's a good price on the car, and if it's say a $5,000 car and you're going to pick it up for $2,000, that's a good deal. But you have to also figure into the equation if you have to change a bumper, if you have to paint the bumper, if you need to do brakes, if you need to do tires, what you need to do on a car. Because a lot of times people will say, well, it looks good and I don't know what it actually needs until you get it. If you go out to look at a car that somebody is selling, 9 times out of 10, you can go and look at the car. I can get into a car, drive it around the block one time, 1 block around, and I can bring it back and I can tell you if it's a good car or if it's a bad car. If you drive a car and you listen as you're driving the car, you're going to step on the brake. If you feel that rattling in the steering wheel and the shaking in the front end, you know it needs brakes. And right off the bat, you have to factor in the cost of doing the brakes, not just the fronts, but all the way around. You'll need to do the brakes on the car. You'll look at the tires. If the tires are dry rotting or cracking on the sidewall or whatever, could you get by with it? You probably could. But if you sell the car to somebody and they take the car out, the tire blows out, you can rest assured you're going to get somebody knocking on your door trying to get the money back out of you for that. So if it needs to have the tires done on it, you want to factor the cost of doing the tires in on it. Now, when you're driving the car and you're actually driving it, you're listening to everything. When you go over a bump, like when I take a customer's car for a test drive and somebody wants me to check a car for them, most of the time the owner wants to go with me in the car and they start talking. I don't talk. You have to be quiet. Stop talking. I want to listen. I want to concentrate to what I'm doing. When you're driving the car, you're listening to the transmission to make sure the transmission shifts. And when it shifts firmly and it doesn't like slide into the next gear. Because if it's sliding into the next gear, something's going on with the transmission as well. So there's lots of different things you have to take into consideration. The next thing you have to remember too, you get in the car and you're sitting in the car. You're looking at the windows to see if there's any kind of chips in the windows, any kind of cracks in the windows. Make sure all your windows roll up and down. These seem like all small things, but if you have a bad power window motor and you're a handy guy and you can do it, then you're going to save a lot of money. But if you got to bring it to somebody to get it fixed, you're going to wind up paying a good amount of money to get the windows repaired. So you're checking your glass, you're checking your windows, making sure everything goes up and down. You're making sure you turn your air conditioner on, make sure your defrosters work, make sure it blows out through the face, make sure it blows out through the feet, make sure all your controls work properly. Now, after you drive it and you don't hear any rattling noises in the front end or banging noises in the back, and it feels fairly straight, it feels fairly decent, and you're driving, as you're holding the steering wheel, you're driving, just notice if you let go of the wheel, does the car tend to drift to the left? Does the car tend to drift to the right? Or does it go pretty straight without pulling left or right? Now, granted, most roads today all have that little crown on the roads. And the reason that they're crowned like that is so that when it rains, the water drains off to the corners and you don't have to worry about it. So it is normal that you'll feel a little bit of pull. So when you're driving, as you're driving the car, just let go of the steering wheel and just see if the car drifts to the left or to the right. If it drifts to the left or to the right, go down the road a little further to a different highway and see if that same problem is there. If it continues to always drift to the right side, then you know something's going on in the front end. The next thing you want to do is when you're driving and you apply the brake, as you apply the brake, if you feel the vehicle pull to one side or the other, then something's going on with either the brakes, the suspension, or something like that. So you have to be aware of that as well. And the last thing you want to do is you want, oh, not the last thing, one of the last things you want to do is you want to also have a scan tool so that you can get into the vehicle itself and check to see if there's any codes in the computer. You also want to go back and you want to make sure that the person that you're buying the car from didn't just actually clear the codes out of it. So what you want to do is you'll need to get in there and make sure, and this is in the historical portion of the scan tools, and depending on what scan tool you have, they're all a little bit different, but you can go in there and you can check to make sure that everything is complete. Like when you drive a car, if you just get in there and you clear all the codes out, yeah, there's no codes present. You'll put the computer on, it'll show up no codes present. The problem is none of the other systems have gone complete, which means the oxygen sensors are not complete, the heating system and the O2s are not complete, the evap systems are not complete, catalytic converters are not complete. So all of those systems have to say complete. If it says not ready when you get into your scan tool and you read it, if it says evap, not ready, catalytic converter, not ready, heater circuit, not ready, then you know that the person cleared the codes out of the vehicle. And at that point, if you saw somebody had cleared the codes out of the vehicle, at that point, I would walk away from the car because that guy or person is trying to put something over on you, and he's not telling you that he cleared the codes out of it. I've seen it happen too many times where I had this person come into me and driving the car, and I always tell people, I'm driving the car, don't talk. I want to just drive the car. And this guy is telling me all about how, this is a used car guy, I might add. He's telling me all about how some of these unscrupulous places will get in and alter the codes and change things around so that it passes inspection and that the guy buys the car and then he's stuck with the car. So I'm listening to this guy talk, and I get the car back to my shop. I plug my scan tool into it. I go into the data stream, and sure enough, I look in there, and not everything doesn't say not complete, but there was like 4 or 5 things not complete inside there. And one of those was catalytic converters. So I know that there might be a problem in the catalytic converter or possibly in the evap system or whatever. And at that point, I just told my customer that if it was me buying the car, I would not buy it. I would just send the car back to him and let them, let them keep the car and go and, pick up a car someplace else. Because if they cleared the codes out of it, then there must have been an issue with it that they're just trying to clear it and get over on you with it. So, that's it. What else I want to say? The other thing you want to check too, now if you're buying a real clean car and you think it's a very clean car, it's very important that you learn if the car was in an accident or not. So you can do the Carfax to make sure that there's no real major accidents with the vehicle. Is it 100% accurate? No, it's not 100% accurate, but it gives you a fairly decent idea if there's any real catastrophic accidents. On Carfax, they will show up if there was a major accident that was reported to the insurance company and the insurance company had to pay out on it. Today, a lot of people have a fender bender or $500 or whatever, and they don't report it to the insurance company because they don't want their rates going up. Something like that will not show up on a Carfax report, which is really not bad because if it's a minor little $500 accident, then chances are it was very superficial and it's not really a big deal. So, but you do want to look around to make sure that none of the fenders, or doors, or anything like that have been replaced. And if they have been replaced, just make sure that that the frame has not been damaged or whatever. I'm going to tell you there's one fella that comes to me, and actually Toyota is driving a Toyota Corolla. And the Corollas, as everybody knows, they're very dependable cars. It's probably one of the best cars ever made out there. But this guy comes in, he drives in with this Toyota Corolla, and he says to me, he says, I just picked up a new car. He says, this is the car. He says, what do you think of it? And I looked at it, and, it was a little bit banged up, and I could tell by looking at it that the bodywork was not done correctly because everything was all crooked. You looked at the front of the car, and everything was lopsided slightly, the right side being lower than the left side. So I said, well, it looks like it was in a pretty hard accident. It doesn't really look like it was, a real cream puff as you thought it was. I opened up the hood, and what happened is, and I feel bad for the guy, and I wound up doing a lot of stuff for free for the guy because I felt bad that he got taken advantage of. He was pretty much down on his luck, and he didn't have a lot of money, and he got really, in plain English, screwed. What happened is it was a Toyota Corolla. It was hit really hard on the passenger side front. It was hit so hard that it actually pushed the frame back, pushed the frame back and down. And when the body shop someplace in Brooklyn put the car back together, what they did is you know that the frame itself comes out, and you have 4 holes that the bumper has to be connected onto. What they did actually is it was bent down, and they couldn't bend it back up. So what they did is the 4 bolts, now 4 because there's one over here as well. What they did is these 2 bolts here are supposed to go on the top, and these 2 bolts here are supposed to go on the bottom. What they did is they actually took where it's supposed to go in like this, and they actually moved this up like that because the frame itself was bent down so far. These bolts are supposed to go in here and in here, but what they did is they took it and they brought it up like that and brought it up and bolted it up. So it was bent a good 6 inches. Problem with that is that the radiator support was actually bent down as well. So what they did is they got up and they pounded underneath the bottom of the radiator support and bent it up and tied it in with a piece of bonding wire to hold it in place. So you want to always make sure if you see something that doesn't look right, like if you look at the front of a car and you look and that front of the car is a little bit crooked or not quite exactly straight, then you know something happened in there, and you want to definitely look a little closer. If you're not positive that it's a real cream puff like you think, bring it to a body shop, bring it to a repair shop, let them eyeball it, and they'll be able to tell you for sure if it's a good car or a bad car or whatever. The next thing you want to check, body lines are very important. Most of the time, body lines on the cars today, they're all fairly even. Like if you look at a door and you look at the top of the door and the bottom of the door, that crack that goes from top to bottom, usually they're fairly straight, where you could put your finger in it and run it down, and it feels almost exactly even. If you see body lines that are crooked like this, then you know something's happened where it was bent, whether the door was damaged or the fender was damaged or something. Everything should line up exactly the same. So if you have a body line that's a 1/4 inch on the top, it should be a 1/4 inch on the bottom, all the way top to bottom. Same thing on the trunk, same thing on the hood. When the hood closes down into the fenders, you should have that little 1/4 inch gap all the way around the whole thing. If you don't, then you know that something was done. And at that point, if you're not positive how bad it was, then by all means bring it into a body shop and have somebody in the body shop just take a look at it, because it's much easier to pay the guy in the body shop or the repair shop to look at it for $50 or $100 or whatever they want to charge you, instead of you buying the car and then you find out that you're going to need to send it into a body shop or a frame shop or something like that to have it straightened out. So the point I'm making is that if you're not 100% sure about it, get somebody else to take a look at it just to make sure. Another thing which is very important, I don't know if I mentioned this too, this time of the year, you want to make sure your air conditioner works. Even if you're buying a car in the fall or when it's cold out, make sure you turn your air conditioning on and make sure the compressor turns on too. Air conditioning work is not cheap anymore. Years ago, it was fairly inexpensive to do something like this. But the problem is today is that you have to change a compressor and the dryer and the evacuating charger system. You're looking at $1,000. So you want to make sure that your air conditioner is functioning the way it's supposed to as well. All right. Can you make money buying cars and selling cars? Yes, you can. I did it for my whole 40 plus years, 42 years for myself. Plus I work for other guys. I used to buy cars and buy them, fix them, and sell them all the time. You can make money at it, but the key is you have to buy right to sell right. All right? Okay, so anybody else have any questions about buying and selling cars and um, you want to email me, we can go into it in more detail, or I could even talk to you on the phone about it. But you just have to be very careful. There's just too many people out there looking to try to get over on you. All right, for that we're gonna talk about that now. Let's see what we got going on over here. What do we got here? A lot of talking going on. These $500 is a minor scratch. That's true. There's nothing that's cheap anymore. If that's the case, walk away. Oh, no. Gerald. As Gerald says, I will never buy a car on a salvage title on. That's true. I mean, the problem is when you buy a car with a salvage title, right off the bat, if you buy a car that's a salvage title and suppose the car is a $5,000 car, you could rest assured you're gonna get half of what that car is supposed to be, because nobody wants to touch a salvage title. I've seen it too many times when you get cars that were hit really hard and they got salvage titles and they're nothing but headaches down the road. All right, what do we got going on here? Okay. All right. I see a lot of people talking back and forth there. I don't see any questions there for me offhand. So we're gonna let that go for a second. We're gonna talk about the other thing we were gonna talk about last week and the week before and the week before that, which I actually just lost track of time and I was unable to actually do it. Dealerships, or as somebody said, I think it was Lon said in here, stealerships. The problem is when you have a car and you're going to bring it back to a dealership, they're going to offer you probably an oil change or two or three. Maybe they can give you a free oil change or a free this or a free that. They're really just trying to get you hooked to come back to a dealership to get something done. I had one of my customers, and this was a used car. She goes to, and it was a Honda Accord actually, and you know what? I think I have a video that I have saved in my computer, which I did not put live yet, but I'm going to put that. I'm going to put that video live because it's going back for probably 6 months ago. Okay. All right. After the show is over, I'm going to actually post a video that's been sitting in my my YouTube videos for a long period of time. As you know, I do a lot of videos, and I actually have them saved on YouTube, but I just make them private, and they haven't been viewed yet. I will make this one live. I do remember this car here now that we're going to talk about it. It was, and this is a customer that goes to she had a good car, it was a decent car, but she wanted a newer car. She wanted a Honda. She wanted something with less problems. The car that she was getting rid of was a Toyota, and it was a Toyota Camry, which was a very good car, but happened is somebody came down the street, crashed into it, wound up ripping the fender off the car, so it wasn't worthwhile for fixing it. It was an older car and not able to fix it, not efficiently anyway, price-wise, because for an older car. So she goes down to a dealership and she says, I want to buy a Honda, but I want to buy something with low mileage. I don't want to buy a new car. So they take her in and they show her this car, and it's got, I don't recall exactly what miles it is on it, but it had like probably 20,000 miles on the car. They tell her the car has got, the oil has changed, they got the air conditioning works properly, the tires are all new, the brakes are all new, everything is absolutely perfect. It needs nothing to be done to the car. So she buys the car. Don't bring it to me. I didn't look at it. She comes in later, like 3,000 miles later, for an oil change. And I said, I'm talking to her and everything, and she says, yeah. She said that I bought this car from the dealership. And she told me all about it and everything. She said the dealership offered her free oil changes afterwards. So what happened is she brought the car back to the dealership for the first oil change, which was like 3,000 miles. She brings the car back. She brings the car into them. It's got only 20 whatever thousand miles on it. I don't recall exactly, but in the video, I will tell you about it. And she says that she went back to the dealership and she got very angry with them because she bought the car, put 3,000 miles on it in less than 3 months, and the dealership told her that she needed to change the air filter, the cabin filter, the drive belt, the power steering fluid, and the transmission fluid, and something else too. There was like a whole bunch of stuff that needed to be changed. And she said to them, "What are you talking about?" She says, "I just bought this car from you, and you told me 3,000 miles ago, 3 months ago, that this car was perfect and needed absolutely nothing." She said, "You know what? Give me the car. I'm leaving, and I'm going to take it back to my regular mechanic," which was me. And she brought the car back to me to take a look at it for her. So it comes into the shop for a regular 3,000-mile oil change. I lift it up and I take a look at it. And sure enough, I pull the wheels off and I check the brakes on the car. The dealership told us she needed brakes. The brakes were like brand new. They weren't even worn down, not even a 16th of an inch. They were brand new. There was nothing needed to be done on those. So they were trying to sell her brakes. They told her the drive belt was no good. And anybody who knows cars, when you have a Honda with 20 or 30,000 miles on it, there's no way that a drive belt is going to be bad. It's less than, I think it was like 2-3 years old, the car too. So there's no way that drive belt was no good. And I looked at it, it was absolutely perfect. I pulled the air filter out and looked at it. It was spotless. It was brand new. I pulled the cabin filter out, which was also spotless and brand new. So everything that the dealership told her needed to be changed didn't need to be changed. The point that I'm making is that when you bring your car into a dealership, get your owner's manual. Look in the owner's manual, and the owner's manual is going to tell you how many miles to change the oil, how many miles to change the transmission fluid, how many miles to do everything that needs to be done. Everything that needs to be done is going to be spelled out in your owner's manual. If it's not in your owner's manual, you don't need to change it most of the time. So always go by not what the dealer recommends, but what the maintenance schedule from the manufacturer says, because that's the one that's in black and white, and that's the one that you're really going to need to go by. The rest of the stuff is all just somebody trying to sell you something, which he's just doing his job. A service writer, his job is to sell you. So a lot of times they're telling you stuff that may not be 100% truthful. So whatever they tell you, just, you have to be aware that they may not be telling you the truth. They could be just misleading you in order to just try to sell you something and get their sales up and meet their certain quota of whatever they gotta, whatever numbers they need to hit. So don't always believe what a dealership is telling you. And this girl in particular, she said to me, what happened is she brought the car in and the guy is inside there. And she said, this service guy comes in, service writer, comes in, sits down next to her and starts talking to her like he's her best friend. They'll always do that. They'll always try to get on your good side before they scare the daylights out of you by saying that you're going to need to do the brakes, you're going to need to do this and that and the other thing, or you're going to wind up having an accident, or the car is going to fail or something. So my recommendation is, if it's not in the owner's manual, in the owner's manual. If it's not in the owner's manual as recommended service, then you don't need to change it. My own personal cars, if I look it up on my computer says that you need to rotate your tires every 5,000 miles or 10,000 miles, whatever it is, I rotate it every 5 or 10,000 miles. If it says change the oil every 5,000 miles or 7,500 miles, I do change my oil every 3,000 miles. And in some cases, if I'm doing a lot of highway, I will stretch it to 5,000. You always want to follow the maintenance schedule that's from the dealership and from the manufacturer, and not go by what's recommended by the dealership, because they're just trying to get their sales up. So that's it. I think that's pretty much what we're going to talk about tonight. I do have another thing we are going to talk about as well. Now, we always end every show the same way. We always talk about car-related questions. The problem I'm running into is that my car-related questions are actually running out. I've had them for quite some time, and I'm just about out of them, so I will have to do a little bit more research, or if any one of my subscribers know any kind of good car questions that you can email me, and not on the chat over here, but if you could email me any car questions, I can bring up on the air and we can talk about. But this is the car question. All right, you ready? This is a question for a car-related question. Which car company started out German yet became French after World War I? All right, so the question is, which car company started out German yet became French after World War I? What do you think? Which car company? In the meantime, I'm just going to look back over here and see what we got going on. Hayward, hi, good to see you. How are you? Yeah, the service writers are something, right? I had one guy one time, a service writer. Hayward, you'll get a kick out of this one. I had a service writer. Okay, we're going to get back to this over here in just a second. I had one service writer one time. I bought a Volvo, and the service writer says to me that I had to bring it back to a dealership, the Volvo dealership, to get the oil changed, or it would void my warranty. Needless to say, you don't have to. As long as you keep your receipts, you'll be fine. Okay, so as Lon says a Peugeot, McGee 63 says Citroen, Gerald says a Maserati, Peugeot, Volkswagen. Lon says a Peugeot. Nope. Good answers, but none of them are right. All right, which car company started out German yet became French after World War I? So let's see who comes up with that. Somebody right now is probably Googling that right now to see what the answer is. Saab. Saab to Saab. Okay, Renault. Nope. Joe says Renault. Nope, that's wrong too, Joe. Come on, Joe. We talked about this car once before. You and me had a discussion about this car. Joe says Jaguar. Nope, it's not a Jaguar either. All good answers, but you guys are going to, I'm going to tell you, and Joe, you remember this. We had a story that I told you about this car in particular, how the car was made. I'm going to give you a hint. I saw something one time on TV about this car. They actually built the car in 3 different sections, and they had 3 different warehouses, and they put it all together in one assembly plant. Joe, you're cracking up. You don't remember, huh? Damn, I thought I was the old guy, Joe. DeSoto, nope, that's not it. Okay, all right. I'm going to tell you. Anybody have any more answers for me? Because if not, I'm going to tell you, and you're going to kick yourself. I'm telling you. All right, we got nobody else, huh? Okay, nobody else has any clue. Sam says Renault. No, it's a good answer, but that's not the correct one. I saw this on Top Gear. No, I think it was. I'm pretty sure, Mark, it was on Top Gear, because I think that was it, because it was actually very interesting to me. Can't remember. I just got older this year. Okay. All right. This is the answer. Which car company started out German yet became French after World War I? It's Bugatti. Bugatti. The Bugatti, founded in Mulsanne in 1909, became French when Also whatever is returned to the French rule. So Bugatti actually started out as a German-built vehicle and became French. All right. But and Joe, you'll remember this. I think it was you, Joe. Was it you we were talking about? Maybe it was my son. I don't remember. But the Bugatti, when they built this car, they actually build it, and they build it to extremes. When they take this car out and they run it, it has to reach zero. I'm going to give you a number, 0 to 150 within so many seconds. If it doesn't get to that, that car does not get sent out for sale. It goes back to find out what's wrong with that car. They have a braking system on the Bugatti this was obviously with a newer one, but they actually have the braking system on the Bugatti where it actually, I think it uses Brembo if I'm not mistaken, and if anybody knows different, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it was Brembo on there. That when the brakes, they actually apply the brakes in this car, they get so hot that the rotor looks like it's in like a thermal meltdown. It actually starts to turn red, where it actually looks like it's melting. That's how hot it gets. And they test all of their braking systems to make sure that they hold up under the extreme conditions. But that was really interesting, and it might have been on one of those car shows that I saw it. Bugatti is absolutely sick. It's just amazing, the Bugatti. It's just, I couldn't imagine. I mean, if you have $1 million or whatever they cost, I guess you can afford something like that. But yeah, it's an amazing car. Okay, we're going to do one more. Most of the cars are electric forum. Okay. You know what else? I got one more car question for you, and then we're going to call it a night because I think we're losing light here, and I didn't turn lights on. But yeah, here's one more car question for you. In what model year did Cadillac introduce the first electric sunroof? All right. In what model year did Cadillac introduce the first electric sunroof? When do you think Cadillac first introduced the sunroof? What year? Lon says 1940. No. Windshield motor for a Bugatti is $31,000. But you know what, Lon? If you could afford a Bugatti, $31,000 is probably just a drop in the bucket, you know? Gerald says 57. Joe says a 63. All good answers, but incorrect. Chris says a 1930. Nope. Say it's still. Okay, I think Joe was helping somebody out there. Chris says a 1930. Joel says 1937. All good answers, but I will tell you this. Joseph is fairly close to the year. You other guys are off a little bit. Lon says 67. We're getting much closer. Hayward says 1908. No, that's pretty far off. Lon, you're probably the closest. Joseph was closest, but then Lon kicked in there, and he's a little bit closer. In what model year did Cadillac introduce the first electric sunroof? All right, I know the suspense is killing everybody. So John A. Clark 1 says 1965. Nope, it actually was 1969. And it says here 1969. Good guess, Lon. 68. Joe, you're right, 69. In 1969, Cadillac introduced the first electric sunroof. That's surprising, but that's what it says. And you know, whatever you read on a computer, it has to be accurate because the computers don't lie, or everything you see on the internet is always the truth, right? All right, so anybody has, this week we talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I still have a bunch of questions from subscribers, but I think we're going to have to do that another time because we're running out of time. Anybody has any questions they want to, anybody has any questions they want to talk about something, they have any car-related issues, send it to me during the week. I'll try to get through it. And I will tell you this, if you send me a question about a car and you don't hear back from me right away, send it again. I get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, and sometimes I do actually skip over some emails and I may not read them. So if you send me an email and I don't get back to you, send it again because I possibly could have just skipped over it. All right, but I think we're going to call it a night. I'm going to get something to drink now because my throat's kind of bugging me here, and that's it. All right, so next week we'll talk about I don't know. We'll talk about maybe How about we talk about summer driving and how to be prepared for summer driving? And we're going to talk about, no, we're not going to do it now. We'll talk about this next week. Summer driving. I'll write this down because I want to talk about it. Okay, just making myself a note that I want to actually, I'm going to put in my upcoming live event here, so a live stream, I should say. We're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about summer driving, what to check, how to be prepared for the summer. I mean, you break down on a day like today when it's 100 degrees out there, you could be sitting out there for a long time. You want to make sure you're prepared for just in case the weather is bad or you're stuck in the heat or whatever. But we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about summer driving. We'll talk about checking your air conditioning. We'll talk about checking all your cooling system and going over everything like that. And we'll talk about also, just in case you happen to break down, what do you do when you break down? What should you do? And so we'll talk about that too. But anybody has any other questions that want me to talk about, then send it to me and we'll talk about it. All right, so signing off from tonight's live stream or Sunday night live stream. And that's it. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for spending your hour and 15 minutes here with me talking to me. And Lon, I promise you I will call you this week. I will. All right? Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.